I'll start by reading. Am I doing this right, Amy? Just jump in and correct me if I'm doing it wrong. Okay.
Fine.
So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 18 of the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, which is not true because they can log in. But okay, I believe that's all I have to say. If I call this to order. And the first thing we should do is reorganize so that I'm not chair anymore. If we could handle that, that would be good. So I motion that Amy Marr is chair.
What? Well, you can't motion because you're the chair.
Oh, sugars. Okay. So we're reorganizing now. I will entertain a motion.
I nominate Jeremy Graves as chair.
Really?
Yes.
I don't even know what I'm doing here.
I'll second it.
Hey.
A motion and in a second. Any discussion?
Did we take attendance?
No, we did not.
Do we need
So
to do that
we'll
first?
Okay, so we'll. Thank
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, motion withdrawn. So we'll do attendance. Amy Marr,
Amy Marr's here.
Carl Moisen,
Carl Moisten's here.
Sue Robbins,
Sue Robbins here.
Greg Marr,
Greg Marr here.
Jeremy Graves,
Jeremy Graves here.
Colleen Roy here. Okay, so now we have attendance. And I'll entertain a motion to reorganize. Well, Matt is, I think he's just participating as a,
I'm a capital passionate citizen at this point.
Aw.
So I'll entertain a motion to reorganize.
Well, since Jeremy was so enthused before, I nominate Jeremy Graves to be chair again.
So hold on, just so we're clear, I am not well versed on Robert's Rules of Order or anything of that nature. I'm happy to do what I can to help, but
How about vice chair?
yeah, I'm sure I'll vice chair. Be glad to.
All right, I'll amend my motion and say you can be vice chair.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second to make Jeremy Graves vice chair. Any discussion? So we'll do a roll call vote. Amy,
Amy Marr, aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Colleen, aye. Motion passes. Jeremy, this is painful for me too because I'm not awesome at it.
I promise you're more seasoned than I, so All
right.
I'll be good.
And do we have a motion for chair?
Chair, actually, Colleen, is there something that precludes you from being chair again?
Her desire.
No.
So I make a motion that Colleen Roy be chairman of the CIPC.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. We're going into discussion. I will tell you, if I stay chair, it's going to be painful because I'm not very seasoned at running a meeting. So if everybody's comfortable with that and helping me along the way, then okay.
Yep. Got to learn somehow.
Sure. So I have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Amy,
Amy Marr, aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Colleen, aye. Motion passes. Okay, do I have a clerk?
I move that Greg Marr be clerk.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. Amy,
Amy Mar, aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Jeremy.
All right.
Colleen, aye. Motion passes. Okay, so we've reorganized. The next thing on the schedule is review the meeting with the select board in December. So when I sent that email out asking about the date, I sent that link in. Did everybody get a chance to review that at all, or
Yes.
Yes.
what's
Yep, I did.
everybody's thoughts? Let's just start talking about it.
So I guess they never discussed it after that. Is that correct?
Yes, it never was brought back up again. But in fairness, it was, budget and then COVID, and it just kind of fell by the wayside.
The last line in the meeting minutes, Colleen, was the fact that you had handed out a new charge / draft prior to the meeting.
Yes.
Is there any way
So-
that we can get a copy of that, or? did you get
Yes.
that?
I would love to send that out to you guys. I apologize. I'm not very well versed. I'm so used to doing these in person where I could have just handed you guys a copy. So I can send that out immediately tonight. That was something I kind of went rogue and did on my own. I took it from the DLS. They have a capital improvement planning hand guide or manual. Basically, it's kind of where I got it. So it's by no means what we have to use. We can rip it apart and make it our own for sure. I just wanted to have a jump off point of something.
So Colleen, from my lack of information, and I apologize if I should know this, but what exactly is DLS?
Department of Labor Services. I'll
Thank you.
send you the link to all of it.
All right, great, thank you.
My sense was that the church is sort of expanded upon the role of the CIPC slightly, but that we would remain an advisory body. But is it to FinCom? Is that correct?
I believe we're an advisory body to the select board.
Okay.
Correct.
We did want to double check with FinCom on the $10,000 threshold. That was mentioned during the meeting because there was a lot of discussion about whether we should increase the threshold to $25,000 for a capital item or continue keeping it at the 10,000, which is where Grafton has historically been the whole time CPC has been in existence.
It's just confusing because the minutes say, and I didn't watch the meeting back to see if it's accurate, but the minutes say that Matt said that we're an advisory committee to FinCom and that FinCom doesn't deal in capital at all, but yet FinCom had capital on their agenda tonight. So I don't know if he's misquoted or if there's a misunderstanding, but we probably should know what our charter is.
Capital, the CIPC does not answer to the FinCom. You're an advisory board to select board, my understanding is.
Yeah.
That's correct.
That's right.
So there was a lot of discussion in that meeting about possible overlap and if CIPC could essentially be absorbed into FinCom. So I don't know how accurate the meeting minutes are. I just watched it back this afternoon. It is pretty lengthy. It's almost, 2 hours worth of a meeting to watch, but I don't remember Matt really saying that they were an advisory committee to FinCom. He did say that during FinCom meetings that it gets mentioned, but it wouldn't take over the prioritization process, which is ultimately our goal that we want to figure out how to do.
Okay.
So Colleen, did you say you want to mesh FinCom and CIPC?
I personally do not, but at the select board meeting, that was mentioned. The select board were making suggestions. It was a workshop, they were spitballing, and it was suggested that maybe there was double duty happening and maybe FinCom can just take on the role of CIPC. But I think ultimately they steered away from that conclusion.
Those aren't according to the charter, those are not our responsibilities. So we
Correct.
can't do that.
Correct. And I think it was mentioned that it was outside the scope of what FinCom is intended to do. So how would you guys like to approach going forward, just get a copy of the charge out, have everybody have a chance to review it, and then we'll start from there and see what we would like for the charge. Maybe discuss meeting with the select board again, and because that's how we kind of left it. They had a copy of that charge. They were going to digest it and put it on a future agenda item. We can at least just start with our charge, see what we are tasked to do, and then go from there. Because what I would hate to do is start diving in and coming up with this whole process only to just be told you can't do that, right? So I think I want to know exactly what the board expects of us and where to go from there. What does everybody think of that?
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay.
And
I would also, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, I think if you want to change the threshold, that doesn't come to FinCom. That has to go to the select board because they give the charge. So I would ask the select board if they want to increase that threshold.
Yeah, there was some back and forth about that at the select board meeting, and it's not in the minutes. But we did disagree on that point. That why would FinCom be the one to set that threshold when it's in the charge?
Yeah.
Because again, they're confused about the board at the time was confused about what the role of CIPC is.
Okay.
So and I think
That's been ongoing for a number of years.
yeah, and I think that's why it's in the minutes that we advise FinCom and not the select board. Hi, Jeremy. All of a sudden, you're like super huge on my screen. I don't know what happened. Took over.
I
Well,
inflated, I guess. I don't know.
Colleen, if we can get a draft of the charge or the proposed charge, as well as we can, within the charge, change the limits, I think you're getting two birds with one stone.
Okay. I'll do both. I'll send out what our current charge says today.
Right.
There are a bunch of errors in it that was addressed during the meeting that Tim was going to go back and clean up. I don't know if that's happened, so I'll double check with that as well. And then I'll send out the proposed charge that we can work off of and shape how we would like to see it. But yeah, the biggest discussion around that was the thresholds, and then what items are getting submitted to us, right? So the last couple of years, what we've been given was just like a predetermined list that we kind of said yes or no to. We didn't really have a lot of time to go through what was submitted and prioritize anything or grade anything. It was just kind of done for us. So we didn't see a lot of the decision-making process. So I know that that's something that we need to come up with as well.
In past years, I think it was Peter Carlson that had used a spreadsheet in order to effectively grade each particular item on the list. And we'd had interviews with the stakeholders, et cetera. So I think overall, I think if we can get that from Pete to take a look at that, that would probably be beneficial. I don't know if you'd seen it or not, Colleen.
I have. It's pretty comprehensive.
It's very comprehensive. It's a great tool.
Yep.
I think it would help us a lot.
Anybody else have any takeaways from that meeting in December? I know it was a long time ago, so.
So Finance Committee did ask to approach the town administrator to ask about those thresholds, to do essentially an analysis to come back so that we could understand the impact of, because there was some back and forth discussion on how much control having the $10,000 threshold versus $25,000 threshold gave us in terms of budget management and all of that. So I think we didn't really come away with any clear picture on that. So I did send a query off to the town administrator asking for that analysis, but that was during COVID, so it just never got responded to and never followed up on. So, but that's certainly something that we could ask again, is for just an opinion on, from really that's an accounting policy, is what would be the impacts from an accounting standpoint, and then we can discuss whether it makes sense from a policy standpoint.
Sounds good. Okay. All right, so looks like the next thing on the agenda is discuss the future capital budget and 5-year plan, which I think might be a little premature to have on the agenda today, considering we don't even really know where our charge stands. How does everybody feel about that?
I concur.
All right, and then we will move right along to the CIPC bylaws. Yes, Sue.
I'll just ask the question, we go back to the capital budget and the 5-year plan. When you're trying to get clarification or understanding from the select board what your charge is, I think that we need to have a discussion with them about the timeline, when the department heads should be coming in, which should be a lot earlier than February or May or April, like they have been, and perhaps have them start meeting with the CIPC come September and set up an arrangement of times when they would come in and talk to you. I think the faster we get a discussion with the department heads, the better off we are.
That's great. I totally agree. I know that Tim and Becca historically have held a capital summit with department heads, usually in August. And in the past, CIPC hasn't really attended those. And I was hoping that that could possibly be the jump off point where CIPC did attend those. There was some discussion at that meeting around that. It kind of got kicked back and forth whether the select board should attend that or CIPC. So I guess some resolution on possibly doing that. And that would get us earlier in the process as well, if that works.
I would think there would be the issue of some CIPC members attended, but not as a committee, but as listening in if they don't want to do it. But I think certainly we need to be part of that process to hear what they have to say somehow.
I agree.
Totally.
Okay. Does anybody else have any input on that item? Okay. So we'll go to the CIPC bylaw. Are you guys familiar with the CIPC bylaw that failed at town meeting in October 2019?
Whatever were you talking about, Colleen?
Very familiar.
Okay.
Painfully
Somewhere.
familiar.
Well, I don't think we should just let it go. I think we should maybe talk about possibly reviving it and see what we can do with that. I'm not totally sure the appropriate way to do that. I don't know if it's just bring it back up with the select board and ask if it's something that they support now, or how do you guys see that?
Well, what do you think the most important pieces of that were? And is there, the way that was put together was pretty comprehensive. And I think that increased the resistance somewhat. But by the same token, the fact that it was addressing it soup to nuts really helped recast the role of this body. Are there specific aspects that need to be put forward more than others, or is it the entirety of the bylaw that you think needs changing?
Matt?
I would argue that the most important element of it is the process.
Yep.
So, from a process standpoint, essentially what the bylaw sets up is, instead of CIPC getting a list from Tim after he's already done the work, is that CIPC does that work on his behalf and then gives him the list, and he goes from there. So to me, so that would have the request flowing through CIPC first. So to me, I thought that was sort of really the heart of it. We can discuss the scope of what CIPC looks at in terms of those requests. And that's where, do we look at car leases? Do we look at land acquisitions and other things? But I think the basic year-to-year process of putting together the capital budget, that was the piece to me that was really at the heart of it.
I agree. I liked the process. I liked the idea that it was implementing a timeline of when we would start seeing information flowing to us, and think that's important.
Go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, school committee habit. I think the one piece that we probably need to look at is how the bylaw works with the CPC process. Because I know that was a pretty big bone of contention at town meeting, and I think we need to address that either by meeting with CPC or having CPC, have a rep come to us and try to figure out like what exactly was the problem with that and what we should do moving forward. Because I honestly don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I think that CPC should be exempt. I think it's something that's worth vetting. If we're supposed to be tightening up expenditures, then I think that what CPC does needs to be reviewed by someone. And if that someone's not us, is it just is it the town meeting? I don't know. But that's a piece we should take a look at, I think.
Sue?
I agree with Amy. That was the point I was going to bring up. And I know Finance Committee agreed with Matt that was a very comprehensive thing. And that was the only issue that we probably need to address and maybe frame it a little differently. Or, I mean, when Matt talked to the Finance Committee, he said that we needed to listen to the community and make adjustments and some changes. So I think we do need to address that and maybe have them come in and talk to us. What do you think, Matt? I don't know.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I think we should react to the discussion at town meeting. The other thing that I heard, which resonated with me a little bit at town meeting, maybe there wasn't as much discussion about it, but should we be looking at sewer expenditures? So we have a board of engineers that sort of looks after, or sewer commission that looks after that. It's a very different thing than what would typically show up in our capital plan and all of that. So that's another area that I think probably bears some discussion and maybe some engagement.
Well, I'm trying to remember if the adjustment of the threshold was in the bylaw, because that was discussed on town meeting floor. It should be in one place or the other, I think, right? It shouldn't be in the charge and in the bylaw. It should be in one or the other. So we need to figure that out too.
It was in the proposed bylaw.
I think maybe we didn't realize, or some of us didn't realize, or we forgot, like we don't know, like we wouldn't have necessarily put that in if we knew that the charge had to be changed first. Because
I think we kept it at 10,000 even in the bylaw. Is that correct, Greg? Are you looking at it right now?
Yeah, it's the definition of capital improvement is included. The $10,000 figure is included twice in the definition of capital improvement.
Because I think even, oh, sorry, Greg.
It's both acquisition or lease of any single item of equipment or construction, reconstruction, other projects. So projects or equipment with a value of $10,000 or more.
so maybe I'm remembering the discussion differently then, because maybe we changed our minds. Because we did definitely discuss in committee upping that number, but maybe we decided to scale it back, and maybe we figured out it was because, and I took the minutes, you'd think I'd remember. But we did discuss it at that time, but that's something we need to address, I think.
In the bylaw committee, we were told that capital was defined somewhere else besides our charge. Maybe it was the charter. I'm not sure. I have to go back and dig where else it was defined, but it made us feel like we didn't have the authority with this bylaw to change it, that it would be something bigger than this.
I just think we should take the number out completely, because it's going to be a pain if, I don't like having information existing in two different places, because then anytime you want to change it, you got to remember to change it in the other, which is kind of what's going on here. So it should be in one spot, and we need to figure out where that is.
Right. Okay.
So, Colleen, I just wanted to ask a question. So is it my understanding that this committee would like to bring the CIPC bylaw back to town meeting?
I don't know. How does everybody feel about that?
I'm all for it. I got nothing better to do. Kidding.
Yeah, obviously, I was for it. I helped craft it. I think it's got value. I think there's reason in doing it, but we also need to account for the headwinds it ran into in town meeting. The idea that it was just more work, it was more approvals that people were going to need to get. We definitely need to lay the groundwork, and to go back to the process, we've got to be able to explain what the process would be and how it's neither more onerous or more government interference. It's basically, as I said in town meeting and was yelled at for, it's a transparency move. It's basically taking everything and putting it out on the table and tracking it in one place. And that's how this board is going to operate. So I fully support going after it again, but I think we need to learn our lesson from our previous go-round and tighten it up. Maybe just limit it where possible and highlight that it's not an extra layer. It's a supporting layer to the people already doing the process, but it's a group that's just focused on the entirety of the question of capital and why that's useful. That's speaking of politics than anything, but I think that's an important piece of it.
Carl, Greg, and Sue, how do you guys feel about the bylaw?
It's been quite a, go ahead, Sue, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's been quite a while since I've read the bylaw. If I could get another copy of that somewhere.
Yep.
That would be great. I apologize for continuing to ask for things.
I just pulled it up from the October warrant.
Okay. I guess I'm confused on what the charge in the bylaws mean. Is the charge, kind of giving us our direction, or is it the bylaw?
So some towns have all three, a charter, charge, and bylaw. Right now,
Okay.
we have a charter and a charge. We don't have a bylaw.
Okay.
So what we were trying to do is strengthen our process with a bylaw.
So we would have three things.
Right.
Okay. Well, considering we're working on changing our charge, or working on our charge, it would make sense to me that if you're going to work to propose a bylaw, then you would also want to work on that as well. They kind of have to overlap, don't they?
I believe they do. Right now, all we have is a charge, so that's all we can really work on addressing.
Right, but then that's what we're going to be addressing, right? So I guess the bylaw we kind of after, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
So the bylaw contains a purpose, establishment, membership, definitions, charge, and capital request submission requirements. So the charge is part of the bylaw.
Okay. How does everybody feel about that?
Say that again, Greg. The charge is part of what bylaw?
The proposed bylaw contained the charge.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any more to add to this topic?
I think this committee should send it forward. You can look at it, and if it needs to be modified in some way, that can happen too. We certainly have a knowledgeable person, people on this committee who could do that. So I think it should be forward again to town meeting. If not for October, maybe in May. You need more time to work on it.
So for sure tonight, I'll send it back out to everybody again to let us all review it and see if there are any modifications that we see before sending it forward. How does everybody feel about that? And then maybe
That's great. That's great.
discuss it a little more at another meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know when the deadlines are for October, but might be nice to get it on just so we have a full plan in place to start the process.
Mhm.
If we wait till May. I mean, if we have to wait till May, we wait till May. But if we can get it in for October, then I think that would help us out tremendously, as opposed to having to wait.
And the warrants close September 4th. So the last day would be September 3rd.
And that's assuming we have town meeting on town meeting day.
Right.
As far as saying that,
All right.
What did you say, Sue?
I think that's what they're saying at this point. They're still planning it that way, so.
So what we would need to accomplish before September 4th is get this sent out to the committee, let everybody review it, meet again one more time, and then try to meet with the select board and try to get it on the warrant. Is that everybody's understanding? And when we meet with the select board, we'll be discussing both our current charge and how they want to do that going forward and the possibility of adding the bylaw to the warrant in October. If they support it or not, or. Okay.
I mean, the strongest way to do it would be to have the select board sponsor the bylaw at town meeting.
That was going to be the question. Who would sponsor it? Because I didn't know if this committee can actually do that or if it would have to be, you're right about the select board would be the best first choice. But we might have to have a plan B.
We got two out of the five right here. We only need one more, right?
Right.
I don't think that's going to be a problem.
That's crazy. That's crazy talk.
Okay.
But it's always good to have a plan B. So.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
Carl.
Absolutely.
I think it would,
I'm a simplistic guy.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. I forgot. I was back in May of 2020. My brain wasn't where it's supposed to be today.
I like that idea of the select board sponsoring.
Yeah.
The warrant
Yeah.
article.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, I think you've got 5 members that have all been on CIPC or, yeah, actually all have been on it.
yeah.
Really?
So,
I don't
Yeah.
think Pete would be adverse to it, but I don't want to speak for him. But
even Doreen's been on it. So.
Help
right.
them write it.
Yeah, so I think we do have to, we need to react to the commentary and discussion in town meeting, but failing that, I feel pretty confident that we should bring this to the select board and ask them. And if we're moving forward with a bylaw that includes a change, I don't know that we necessarily have to update the charge from the select board because presumably the bylaw would just supersede that in October.
Colleen, you don't happen to know or have written down somewhere where that town meeting video is and how far in we have to
No,
go?
but I can absolutely send the town meeting. I can find that tonight and send it out to you guys
Oh,
easily.
that would be awesome. I know that's like your
The December 10th video, but not that one, but I'll do that.
awesome. Yeah, that would be great because I think it would help us refresh before the next meeting of what the discussion was and try to make a list of, okay, we'll go down the list and make sure we've addressed each one. If we're not going to make a change in the bylaw before we take it to town meeting next time, then we at least need to be prepared to address why we're not going to change based on the discussion.
It's a great idea. Okay.
'Cause
so I'll get
I feel like we got caught a little unawares, or, I mean, I was surprised personally at the level of concern that it generated. I really wasn't anticipating there would be much of a discussion.
Well, we as a bylaw committee, we talked to quite a few of the stakeholders, including Tim and we did have 2 very lengthy conversations with CPC, for example. So I didn't hear what I thought was, a significant level of concern that I would have expected based on what we saw at town meeting. So, it is what it is, but I
Yeah.
think people registered their concerns and so we just need to react to them. And the thing is, we can always, adjust sort of the scope of this committee down a little bit and work on the core pieces of it. And then if we want to add something like CPC in later on, we just change the bylaw and include it. So it doesn't have to be 100% comprehensive to start with. I think the idea with something like CPC is that it would be included in all of our reporting so that the town would have a very comprehensive view of all of the capital in town. That's I think it's a nice to have, I guess, as far as I'm concerned. The budgeting process and the planning process, I think, is the more essential piece.
Any other discussion on this? Okay. The next agenda item is to create goals. How does everybody feel about that? I think we just created a lot of goals for ourselves in the discussions we just had. I don't know if we need any more, but I don't want to speak for the committee, so.
Sounds like a full plate already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
I would still write them down and codify them.
Yep.
So at the end of the year, we can, check off, we did this, we did that.
Okay. So it sounds like we're going to be really busy in August if we're shooting for a September 4th deadline. What does everybody's schedules look like?
FinCom has a meeting August 25th.
So I would say we should avoid Tuesdays because, if it's not school committee, it's select board or both.
Yep.
Greg and I are in New Hampshire the 7th through the 15th, but we could be online if we needed to be.
Okay.
We'd be home the 15th if we wanted to do a Saturday, which, I know that's not popular, but there it is.
I would like to try to maybe meet again next week. Let everybody review all the materials I'll send out tonight so that we can try to approach the select board and give them as much time as possible when we could get on an agenda for them. I don't want to get too close to the end of the month and then not be able to get on an agenda. Does everyone agree with that? Would August 5th work for everybody? And I'll send everything out tonight.
What's wrong with Thursdays?
Nothing's wrong with Thursdays. Do people like Thursdays better?
It would work better for me as FinCom.
Works for me.
Okay, so August 6th, would that be better? So, okay, so August 6th, I'll send out the charge, the bylaw, and the town meeting link and timestamp for us all to review. And I know the bylaw and the charge are kind of overlapping each other, but at least we'll all have the material and we'll be able to have a bigger discussion about that. Would it be helpful if I made like something that we could share a screen and all be looking at the same time? Or is it, people, okay. All right, I'll figure that out and then share it with somebody who knows how to share a screen.
I was going to say one of the reasons I nominated Jeremy to be your vice chair is because I think he's technical. He's shaking his head, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling he probably knows how to do that stuff, and he could co-host the meeting with you and help you.
Love
with the
that.
things.
I'd be pleased to
There
do
you
so.
go.
Yes, absolutely.
He's
Thank
got the
you.
fancy background, so
I got
I
a new
didn't think you wanted
webcam,
to
but
see
I
my
can't even turn it on.
fan spinning all meeting.
yeah. So Jeremy will help you. It's all good.
Perfect. Okay, so August 6th, I'll try to get that all set up tomorrow, and I'm assuming 7 works. They picked 7:30 tonight because FinCom was meeting and the Zoom link was being used, but do you guys prefer 7:30? Did that give you more time, or do you like 7?
7.
7?
7's fine.
Okay. Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, just wondering if you could ask somebody to post. So is everybody here?
The whole committee is here, yes.
This is a 7-member committee, right?
Yes.
So can you ask to have the position posted, and then I'll put in my letter of interest.
Yes.
You won't have to compete with FinCom anymore because we were asked to do our own Zooming and not go through the town.
Oh, really?
So
Did that happen tonight?
we will be doing our own Zooming, so it won't be, you won't have to compete with us, so. It's meeting dates.
You and all your meetings.
Okay.
I just as soon have us control it. Quite frankly.
That's what I did. I didn't even ask. I just got my own account and we just ran them.
Oh, they don't want us to use their account.
It makes sense. I mean, you guys, yeah, have a very active season twice a year, so it makes sense.
All right, so we've kind of flown through the agenda. I don't believe we have any meeting minutes. And is there anything else anybody would like to discuss that we didn't touch on yet? Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call vote. Amy,
Amy Moore, aye.
Carl,
Aye.
Sue,
I
Greg,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Colleen, aye. Thanks, everybody.